One of the largest automakers in the world, the brand that managed to outsell Ford and even hold car sales records that seemed unbreakable. The creator of one of the most iconic cars ever, the Impala Chevrolet. But despite its fancy name, did you know that the co-founders, one of whom the company is named after and is holding the company, filed for bankruptcy and drowned in debt 3 times collectively? Stick with us as we tell you how Chevrolet went through debt and continued to re-emerge as a top brand. The roots of the biggest automakers in America are surprisingly not from America. We have to go across the Atlantic to Switzerland. Louis Joseph Chevrolet was born on the 25th of December 1878 at La Chaux-de-Fonds in Switzerland. He was a second child of Joseph Chevrolet and Marie Mahon. Due to financial struggles, his family left their hometown and moved to Bonn, France. Despite starting a new watch store, his father could not provide enough for the family. The situation was so bad that they even skipped meals for an entire day. Louis had to drop out of school. At just 11 years old, Louis started working at the Robin Bicycle Workshop. He was able to pick up the trade quickly and started repairing bicycles. And soon enough, he designed his own bicycle, the Frontenac, at the age of 16, which he drove in several local races in town and emerged on the top most of the time. His job not only let him provide for his family, but also helped him find his true calling. Was going to change the life of the young mechanic forever. Louis had to repair a steam-driven tricycle at the Hotel de la Poste. The tricycle was then the latest technology and was only owned by the wealthiest people. And wealthy he was. The tricycle belonged to William Cassim Vanderbilt, who belonged to one of the richest families of that era. Louis' work left a mark on Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt left a bigger one. Vanderbilt asked Louis to move to America, where there he would have more opportunities and a fortune for the taking. Ever since then, Louis wanted to go to America, but he did not have the money to do so. In 1899, Louis designed a bicycle called the Gladiator, and this was a neck breaker. A manager at the Darroch automaking plant was so impressed that he hired Louis to work at his factory. It was at this time that Louis learned how engineers worked and how they were made. But Louis did not forget his dreams. He did not want to merely become a factory worker. He wanted to be more. Using the money he earned, he bought a ticket to cross the Atlantic Ocean. William Walter, another Swiss immigrant, gave Louis a job at his engineering workshop in New York. Soon, Louis got a job at De Dion's American branch, but things got suddenly worse for Louis. The branch shut down by the very next year, and Louis wasn't able to find any new work. Adding to the fact that his father had passed away, he had a family to feed. He persuaded his family to move to America. It was definitely a tough time for him. The next few years were very burdensome for Louis. He worked in several small workshops and worked as a driver during his part-time in the battle to put food on the table. Soon things were to change. Louis was hired into Fiat's racing team. Louis was quick to leave an impression on people's minds. He was a daring racer. In a timed event at Morris Park, Louis drove an underpowered Fiat and continued to break the 1-mile record. People were hyped. A few months later, Louis was matched up in a head-to-head race against the top racers in the country. The event was heavily publicized, but there was doubts in people's minds. Driving in a timed event is not the same as an actual race against other racers, but Louis soon cleared the doubts as he proceeded to win the race. This was a huge boost for Louis's career and popularity as he appeared on the front page of the New York Times. Over the years, Louis proceeded to win race after race, and at the same time, got a better understanding of the vehicles. In 1909, Louis finished as the second best driver in the American Championship. Louis became a famous public figure and was nicknamed the Daredevil Frenchman. William Durant, a businessman and founder of General Motors and owners of the Buick Motor Company, signed Louis into his racing team, but their relationship was for a bigger cause. In a meeting, both of them agreed to build a car company together. Louis, with his brother Arthur, partnered up with William and founded the Chevrolet Motor Company in 1911. Louis's heart was in the thrill of speed and racing, and this carried over into his work as well. Louis wanted to build fast racing cars, but William was not fond of the idea. He asked them to focus on high-volume, low-priced cars like Henry Ford, who was running a successful car company at the time. The disagreements between them were never fully resolved, and things went from bad to worse. Louis had to travel to Europe for a couple of days. Upon his return, he was in shock and disgust. William had restricted the company towards producing low-budget cars. "I sold you my automobile, I sold you my name, but I shall not sell my personality." These were the famous words Louis told William. Lewis reduced his involvement in the company and went back to what he loved most, the speed and thrill of racing. In 1915, Lewis made a decision that changed his entire life. He sold his stake in the company to William Durant, which meant that Durant is now the sole owner of Chevrolet Motors. After selling his stake, Lewis founded the Frontenac Motor Company in 1915 and put his blood, sweat, and tears into producing super fast cars. And his effort did pay off as his cars were successful on the track. His younger brother Gaston and Lewis were a formidable force in the racetrack. In 1920, the duo won the Indianapolis 500, the biggest racing trophy in the country. But a tragedy was in their tracks. In 1922, Gaston died in an accident during a race in Beverly Hills. Lewis broke down. He was so disturbed by the loss that he gave up on his passion, what he loved doing the most. Lewis swore he would never race again. Lewis started losing his fortune, and eventually he had to file for bankruptcy. He tried his hand in similar businesses like manufacturing motors and light aircraft engines, but the Great Depression put an end to those businesses. Lewis eventually got a role in Chevrolet. There were no accolades for him because this time, on Chevrolet's assembly line. Quite tragic and depressing, Chevrolet died in 1941 at the age of 63. He was buried at the Holy Cross Cemetery in Indianapolis, which was close to where he did what he loved the most, the Indianapolis racing circuit. The Chevrolet company, on the other hand, was outselling the Ford. The brand started becoming recognizable across the world. William Durant must be rich, right? Well, nope. William Durant went on a spree of acquisitions on which he spent a lot of money. This did not pay off. He was no longer a part of Chevrolet because he was drowning in debt and the company had to be sold to General Motors. The Chevrolet Motors showed no signs of stopping. They were dominating the car sales. In 1953, they released the Corvette, which was made of fiberglass instead of steel. The car captured the hearts of the youth of the American market. Soon came the iconic Chevrolet Impala. The Impala was an instant hit. That car broke the record for most cars ever sold in an American market. The car sold 1 million units not just for a single year, but for 2 years in 1965 and 1966. Surprisingly, despite having more car on the roads today, this record is still unbroken. The days of glory lasted very long until around 2005. General Motors, the holding company of the Chevrolet, stopped making profit. The world's largest automaker lost its spot to Toyota in 2008 after 77 years of being on top. The losses kept mounting and the economic crisis added oil to the fire. General Motors was forced into bankruptcy in 2009. Even a $19.4 billion bill in federal help couldn't keep GM out of bankruptcy, despite still being the nation's largest automaker. Chevrolet managed to survive and still continues producing vehicles. In fact, they even started producing electric vehicles with the Chevrolet Bolt EV, a sign that they are prepared for the future. The Chevrolet brand continues to be an integral part of American society. Could things have been different for Louis Chevrolet and William Durant had they resolved their differences? Will Chevrolet be able to re-emerge from another bankruptcy if they were to meet with one again? Let us know what you feel in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more interesting stories.